included with Article 44, but for the members, to remind you that we did consider Article 45 on Monday evening, so we are moving to Article 46. Start tonight with 46. Also like to make a reminder, please, at this front part of the room, there's an aisle that demarks it. Only town meeting members should be sitting up in this front part of the room, which is really the front 3/4 or more. Thank you. Article 46, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Section 90A of Chapter 32 of the Massachusetts General Laws, which would allow the town, by vote of a majority of its members, to increase the retirement allowance of any former employee of the town who has been retired under any provision of Chapter 32 of the Massachusetts General Laws, or similar provisions of earlier law on account of injuries sustained or hazard undergone in the performance of his duty, to an amount not exceeding 1/2 of the rate of regular compensation payable to employees of the town of Milton holding similar positions at the time of increasing such allowance in the same grade or classification occupied by such former employee at the time of his retirement, and to act on anything related thereto. This is submitted by the Board of Retirement, and it is recommended that the town vote to accept the provisions of Section 90A of Chapter 32 of the Massachusetts General Law, and this will require a 2/3 vote. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Article 47, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Section 90C of Chapter 32 of the Massachusetts General Laws, which would allow the town to increase the retirement allowance of any former employee retired under any provision of Chapter 32 of the Massachusetts General Laws, or similar provision of earlier law on account of superannuation after having served the town of Milton for a period of not less than 25 years, to an amount not exceeding 1/2 the rate of regular compensation payable to employees of the town of Milton holding similar positions at the time of increasing such allowance in the same grade or classification occupied by such former employee at the time of his retirement, and to act on anything related thereto. This is submitted by the Board of Retirement, and it is recommended that the town vote to accept the provisions of Section 90C of Chapter 32 of the Massachusetts General Law. This will require a 2/3 vote. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Okay, actually that's not a point of information, but it's a question. I guess Marge Jeffries from Precinct 5 would like an explanation of the difference between what these articles are and the difference between the two. I recognize the town accountant. Mr. Grab.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm also standing before you tonight as the chairman of the Board of Retirement. Section 90A, or Chapter 90 of General Laws of 32, work in difference between 90C is only that one is based upon disability under hazard conditions of the employee, former employee who is now retired. Now, the average age of this employee in this category is 67. The 90C is anyone who has a minimum of 25 years within the system. And as it turns out right now, the average age of these people are 79. Now, these are people who have had retirement going back to the early 70s. And their salaries at that stage are significantly lower than what they are today. This will bring them up to a point where they can probably survive a little bit better. The salaries that they are currently working with are not good. Is this vote good for Milton? Not necessarily. Is this bad for Milton? Not necessarily. Is this vote right for Milton? Yes. This will bring these people back into a lifestyle that is comparable to what they should be in at this stage in their lives. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Ms. White, you're recognized.
Ann White, Precinct 10. I know we voted on this, but Article 46 does have a line in there saying, while the cost of the program is not material to the town, and now you're talking about specific employees that this would benefit. Could you just tell us how much money is involved and where the money comes from?
No, I cannot tell you the exact sum. There is no appropriation. This is built into mortality rates on the annuity fund and on the actuarial value that is done on a yearly, 3-year basis. Our next actuarial value is to be performed January of 2005. There is no number that can be set for this particular article.
So you don't have a number of people.
We do have a number of people. In this case, we have, for the first one, we have 11 people. And it cannot be exceeding that at this stage. The only way this could be exceeded is if we voted this again in another town meeting.
Maybe I just don't know anything about retirement, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
yet. Maybe a few years. I'm very interested at this point. If you've got 11 people who you're going to change the current amount of money that we're paying, what are we talking about for money? You're saying it, can you, am I missing the point?
I can't tell you what the cost will be. The cost is actually dropping dramatically as we speak. Last week, prior to this whole stage beginning, we had 35 people in the other section. Currently, there are 21. Just last week, we lost another. It's down to 20. So as I said, it's based upon mortality rates on the actuarial values of these employees. Now, the cost is not significant enough to develop any type of chart currently, and they will not do so at this time. I do not know what the cost will be in the future, if that's what you're asking.
Excuse me, Mr. Grab. The funds are paid out of the retirement fund?
Correct.
Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Again, a reminder, it will require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Article 48. As you all can see, having your warrant, there are several pages here related to Article 48, and you would also see that there's no recommendation at this time. I'd like to recognize the chair of the Warrant Committee to read your recommendation, and you'll see that because of that recommendation, I'm going to not read the entire article to you. Emily Innes, you're recognized.
We thought we'd save you a little time. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is recommended that this article be referred to the Planning Board for further study.
Does anyone wish to speak to this article? All those in favor of the motion of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Article 49. To see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 10 of the general bylaws known as the zoning bylaws by making the following changes to subsection L, condominium conversion special permit of Section 6, area regulations. 1, to add the following words at the end of paragraph 3. Provided that where one or more new condominium dwelling units are authorized pursuant to paragraph 6 of the total of condominium dwelling units shall not exceed N-1 or N-1, so that paragraph reads, the total number of dwelling units cannot be created under a condominium conversion special permit shall not exceed N-2, where N is the number of acres in the parcel, provided that where one or more new condominium dwelling units are authorized pursuant to paragraph 6, the total number of condominium dwelling units shall not exceed N-1. 2, to delete paragraph 6 and to insert in its place the following paragraph 6. 6, No new building for dwelling purposes shall be constructed on the parcel, provided that the planning board may authorize accessory facilities and structures as provided by paragraphs 8, subsection B, and paragraph 12, subsection E below, and further provided that the planning board, in its discretion, may authorize up to 3 new condominium dwelling units. The gross floor area of the condominium dwelling units not to exceed 25% of the gross floor area of the condominium dwelling units, excluding any new condominium dwelling units on the parcel. If the planning board shall have made the findings required by paragraph 12 in the following additional findings: A, such additional new dwelling units are financially necessary for the maintenance and operation of the condominium common areas by the Association of Condominium Owners. B, the design of the new condominium dwelling units and of the driveways, walkways, accessory structures and facilities, and landscaping augment the existing site design and constitute an integral part of the overall site without adverse design impacts. And C, there is a substantial public benefit, excluding payment of taxes, attributable to the authorization of additional condominium dwelling units, and to act on anything related thereto. It is submitted by the Planning Board, and I recognize Emily Innes for revised recommendation of the Warrant Committee.
Recommended that the town vote to amend Chapter 10 of the general bylaws, known as the zoning bylaws, as printed in the warrant.
This article will require a 2/3 vote. Do you wish to be recognized? I recognize the Chairman of the Planning Board, Alexander Whiteside.
Alexander Whiteside, Chairman of the Planning Board and Town Meeting Member ex officio. This article has to do with a section of our zoning which we adopted in 1980, which is known as the Condominium Conversion Special Permit. And basically what it says is that you can convert existing buildings into condominiums if you have a parcel of land 10 acres or larger. And the number of units you can have is the number of acres minus 2. So if you have a 10-acre site, you can put in 8 condominium units. It's a very large open space requirement. This is our first effort at condominiums in 1980, and as part of the effort, we said no new building can be done. You've got to use your existing structures. And there have been 2 developments developed under this condominium conversion special permit provision, one of which is across from Curry College, and I'm not sure I remember what its name is, and the other is Brushwood Estates, which is at Smith Road and Brush Hill Road. And this article was prompted by the experience of the condominium owners at Brushwood, who find that their condominium charges have gone up to about $15,000 a year in order to support the common areas and the plowing and all the other things that a condominium association has to do. So they suggested that it makes more sense to permit the planning board to add units, new construction, into one of these condominium conversion developments. And they suggest up to 3 new units. And in the case of Brushwood, that would mean 1 unit in addition, or 1 unit beyond what is currently allowed by the zoning. The result would be that there would be 3 new dwellings to help pay the condominium charges. That would bring down the condominium charges. That would increase the value of the condominiums. That would increase the taxes to the town. In addition, there would be 3 new units, which would be taxable at a high valuation. And beyond that, this bylaw requires that someone coming in for new construction show that beyond the tax benefit to the town, there also be a substantial benefit to the town resulting from the planning board's permitting 3 new units. It isn't possible to specify that substantial benefit without an actual application before the planning board. There has been speculation as to what a substantial benefit might be. One member of the planning board has suggested that perhaps there could be a piece of land devoted to park purposes. Other members of the planning board have suggested that it might be possible for the developer to offer help to the schools, the library, financial help, or facility help. It isn't possible to know what that substantial benefit is now, but the bylaw requires a substantial benefit to the town. So in the view of a majority of the planning board, this is a win-win situation. The people in Brushwood get relief, the town gets more taxes, and in addition, the town will get a substantial benefit. And we recommend this article to you highly.
Mrs. Cannon, you're recognized.
Good evening, Susan Kiernan, Precinct 6. I am also the attorney for Brushwood Estates, located at 333 Brush Hill Road. And that was, we've been working with the planning board. Alex has presented a very concise idea of what we've been working with and why the present article is not a workable article. Basically, what this article does is it refers only to certain parcels of land of 10 acres or more. So that's the starting point. And as Alex had said, there are basically only 2 areas in town that could take advantage of this article. It has not been a workable article for us because it does not allow new construction. So you have to have an existing building on which to build upon, and basically 333 Brush Hill Road is maxed out. There are no more existing buildings for them to convert. The idea was to allow more condominium units to be built on a parcel if, in fact, the planning board is satisfied that, in fact, the architecture will remain consistent with the large estate that was once on the parcel or continues to be on the parcel. So we're not talking about condominium units that are what one might imagine, the tall, block-looking structures. We're talking about a parcel that has an old estate on it, and you're now trying to enhance that with the same type of architectural design that was with the original estate. It also speaks to preservation of open land, which is exactly what the N-1, N-2, which sounds a little confusing, but actually what it does is basically allow more land than condominiums on a parcel. So in fact, by increasing the number of buildings at Brushwood 333 Brush Hill Road to 3 more units, they will still have more acres than parcels. In fact, there are now only 6 freestanding structures, although there are 14 condominiums there in that area. This basically is a win-win situation for Milton. We've heard for the past couple of nights about, draining the revenue that Milton has and how poor the economic picture is. In fact, by giving this article more flexibility, you're allowing, Brush Hill Road to be able to take advantage of it and to be able to increase the tax revenue for the town. In fact, they're pretty self-sufficient as a parcel also. They take care of their own street lighting, their streets there are plowed by them, their streets are maintained by them. There's really nothing that they're demanding of the town. They're going to bring in, they envision somewhere around, I don't really want to get into their application, but each unit will bring in somewhere around $10,000 in tax revenues for the town. So as I said, this is a win-win situation for Milton. You know, we've heard for the past couple of nights only about draining the town coffers, and this does quite the opposite. So with the support of the selectmen and the support of the warrant committee, and I hope to get your support as well, we'll be able to take advantage of this and add to the revenues of the town. Thank you.
Yes, sir, you're recognized.
Tom Callahan, Precinct 2. It's a question for the Planning Board. Substantial public benefit, since we're talking about housing units and condominiums, could substantial public benefit be defined as payments either in terms of units or cash towards building affordable housing in Milton, which is desperately needed? Our school teachers, our firefighters, our police officers, many of whom live outside of town because, for one of the reasons at least, they cannot afford to buy a home in Milton. So I was wondering if substantial public benefit could be defined as contributions towards affordable homes in Milton.
Mr. Whiteside, you will recognize, and the answer is?
The answer is a resounding yes.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this article? Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Sandra Kramer from Precinct 2. My question is very similar. I'm also thinking about affordable housing, and I don't know what the state laws are. I thought there was some percentage of new housing that was supposed to be coming into a community that was supposed to be affordable housing. And again, I don't hear how that relates to what's going on. So I'd just like an explanation if someone can answer. Thank you.
Mr. Whiteside, you're recognized.
Well, there's no requirement for affordable housing in this particular development, and given the amount of the condominium fees, it isn't really a very good development to try and make affordable at this time. But certainly, and as I say, there is no legal requirement that a portion of it be affordable, but I do think that there's no question that a substantial public benefit would be affordable housing created, although perhaps not here, perhaps somewhere else.
Mrs. Jeffries, you're recognized.
Marjorie Jeffries, Precinct 5. Ask and you shall receive. Therefore, I am asking if some of this public benefit might be directed toward the library, would you believe?
Yes, it could.
Let's make sure it does.
We haven't predefined the public benefit, but that certainly these suggestions are the sort of public benefit that we would be looking for.
Mr. Duffy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Ed Duffy. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 7. I'm a member and secretary of the Milton Planning Board, and I dissent from my colleagues. I was born in Milton, at Milton Hospital in Cunningham Park, so I've been around a long time, and I've seen the changes in the landscape. And I oppose this proposal, zoning change proposal, for a variety of reasons. I'll state just a few. First, I would ask the members if you have seen the land in question. Have you been up there? You can't see it because it's a gated community. You can see the tops of trees, but you can't see it from the street. Wouldn't you think that perhaps the applicant, which is Brushwood, through us, Brushwood Estates, might provide us with a slide show showing the buildings, showing the grounds? Wouldn't you think that perhaps they might provide a handout showing the 18 acres and how much space is left over for open space and where the proposed buildings might go? I provided them for myself. I did the research on my own. I did have a tour there from some of the residents a year or so ago, very nice people. But I had to provide this for myself to get an idea of what you might be voting on. It's too small for you to see. I thought the applicants might provide it for us, something on the screen or something to have in your hand. I don't know personally any of the residents there. So I looked in this 3 list of residents just to see some of the occupations of the people that are there, and they're much like we are: homemaker, legal secretary, nurse, for example, and some others. Systems engineer, corporate vice president, executive, physician, financial consultant, investments, insurance executive, real estate investor, attorney, and so forth. Do you know the town zoning bylaws are in urgent need of overhaul, not just this particular bylaw, but the zoning bylaws are in urgent need of overhaul. Let me cite some examples of land transactions and land use changes in the last year in Milton. There were 3 major parcels of land that underwent change last year. Each parcel was roughly 25 acres, for a total of 75 acres of land. The net effect of that were 5 houses in 75 acres. 15 acres per house was the net effect of those 75 acres. We have a housing crisis in Massachusetts, especially in eastern Massachusetts and especially in the metropolitan Boston area. And that's the best we could do: 5 houses on 75 acres. We have a real estate tax base crisis in the town of Milton. 50 of those 75 acres will be tax exempt in perpetuity by the actions during the past year. 50 acres tax exempt. We have an open field crisis where young people can gather and play in the town of Milton. In those 75 acres, not 1 acre was dedicated to open fields for children to play, for mothers to bring their tots, for the elderly to walk or sit down and enjoy open space. Not 1 acre, not 1 square foot, not 1 square inch was dedicated to that purpose. For these and many other reasons, I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Mr. Mullen, you're recognized.
Peter Mullen, Precinct 3. As I understand this article, essentially what it does is it requires that an applicant apply to the planning board, get a special permit in order to do this, and one of the things that the planning board has to find is that there's a substantial public benefit from granting permission to build these 3 additional units on this particular site. And that public benefit has to be something other than the additional taxes that may be owed here, or that would be owed if the additional units were built. Various suggestions have been made as to what that benefit might be. It might be a donation to the library or the schools or a parkland or something. There's absolutely no indication within the bylaw as to how much money, how the planning board is supposed to exercise its discretion in deciding whether or not this requirement has been met. I believe it's correct that any amendment to the bylaw, the zoning bylaw, has to be approved by the Attorney General's office before it becomes effective. I'm wondering whether anyone has considered whether it's this bylaw as written, without really any standards or any indication as to how the planning board is supposed to exercise its discretion, whether this will pass muster with the Attorney General's office. And I guess I'd ask if the planning board or town council or someone could address that.
Town Council, Mr. Flynn, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town meeting members, in an issue like this, it's, in my opinion, this is a valid bylaw if town meeting votes it. It's impossible to predict how the Attorney General will react to it because for a lot of good reasons they won't approve in advance a bylaw. But based upon my experience with prior and other examples of zoning bylaw amendments, I think this is a reasonable exercise of the town's authority because the enabling statute that gives the town's authorities to confer special permit granting authority on a Board of Appeals or a planning board provides in part that any special permit issued by the special permit granting authority can be issued with reasonable conditions on use, time, and manner. And it's very difficult to specify in a bylaw such as that proposed what are the specific types of standards or what are the specific types of benefit that a planning board should require. And in my opinion, as long as your planning board exercises its authority in a reasonable manner and uses a reasonable basis for any conditions it opposes or any decisions it makes regarding the public benefit, that would be valid. It's almost impossible and at best difficult to articulate that in a bylaw provision like this, and it's left to, and properly so in my opinion, it's left to the reasonable discretion of your planning board as special permit granting authority. If they exercise that authority reasonably, their decision will be upheld. If they exercise it arbitrarily, the decision will not be upheld. But I think this bylaw as proposed would be valid.
Mr. Shields, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Shields, town meeting member from Precinct 2. I was wondering if the planning board, when Mr. Whiteside was originally speaking, Mr. Moderator, he mentioned that under the 1980 condominium bylaw, only two condo developments have occurred under that bylaw. I was wondering if the planning board, and then Mr. Duffy identified 3 25-acre parcels that have changed hands over the last few years. I was wondering if the planning board has identified any other of these old estates around town or any other parcels in town that would be subject to development as condos if there was a provision, as this bylaw does, for expansion to make it financially viable. Have you been able to identify any other parcels that would now make it a viable condo development?
Mr. Whiteside, you're recognized.
As far as this particular condo provision is concerned, I don't think that there are any potential sites where it would be viable without increasing the density even more than it's been increased. Now, I think we're only increasing the density by 1 unit in this particular article. And the density is 1 unit. It is basically a unit per acre and then subtract 2. So that's this bylaw has a very, very extensive open space requirement to it, and I think without major revision it couldn't be used from scratch again.
Mrs. Regan, you're recognized.
Mary Regan, Precinct 8. First off, I'd like to second Marge Jeffrey's request, but that's not the reason I'm standing. I wish somebody could explain to me, when Mr. Duffy said there were 5 houses built on 75 acres, I'd love to know where the acreage is, and why are there only 5 houses? Is there a reason why other houses can't be built?
Part of this,
Excuse me. Just for the point of it, we're starting to drift a little bit away from the specifics of this article, but I'm going to allow this one answer to continue.
I mean, one of these developments was an open space subdivision right next to the Blue Hills Reservation, which is in back. Another parcel, a large parcel of 23 acres, is the Hillside Street School parcel, which is not actually all developable land. There's a significant amount of wetlands there, but that is all going to be kept open. So the average goes down because of a number of transactions which bring it up. I mean, in Milton, we have in our C zone one of the smallest lot sizes around, 7,500 square feet, and there's a great deal of C zone land. I don't think that we're necessarily zoning ourselves out of space.
Mr. Gordon, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Marvin Gordon, Precinct 8, and I am also president of Milton Fuller Housing Corporation, which, by the way, I think may not be within the last 12 months, but within the last 16 months, was the recipient of the largest, what I believe is the largest piece of land transferred in the town in many years, namely 29 acres on Brush Hill Road, between Brush Hill Road and Blue Hill Avenue, which is for the expansion of the Milton Fuller housing. I urge the town meeting members to support this article. I think we're arguing about 2 or 3 additional units. There isn't much potential for this being applied to a zoning article that actually calls for less units on these condominium transfers to be built than the number of acres, which is a substantial, except for the AA zone, is a density that is very low. And on the other hand, the one argument that was made was that this is a benefit to higher income. The flip side of that coin, higher income residents, is higher tax-paying residents, contributing to the financial well-being of the town. I'll just point out that some of the issues that have been brought up tonight are certainly addressed, at least in relationship to our elder residents, in the expansion of I think it's 156 new units, a large number of new units being now under construction at Milton Fuller, which has a huge benefit not only in taxes, but has a minimum of 25% affordable under the state standards, and also touching on one item that was brought up tonight, of which 10%, up to 10%, if they so desire, are available to retired town employees. That was a requirement by the donor of the land, of whom, without mentioning his name because he wouldn't appreciate it, but I'm sure almost everyone in this room knows who I'm talking about. It was his idea, and I think a very beneficial one, that town employees be the beneficiaries, and that was mentioned as something that our town employees, to keep people in the town, that we should be striving for. So we're already between MRE and Milton Fuller, we're already by far the largest taxpayer in the town. This is going to increase taxes tremendously. I think that the planning board's article is well-founded, and we shouldn't be just trying to meet our, which is a worthwhile effort, and the Board of Selectmen is also working in this direction, trying to meet our affordable housing quotient so that we don't have 40B developments stuffed down our neck. But I think that between what we're doing in Milton Fuller and other possibilities in the town, other efforts for condominiums that can increase the tax revenue tremendously and not really create a density problem, it's a very worthwhile effort. So I urge, strongly urge a yes vote on this question. Thank you.
Ms. McCarthy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. For the record, the Board of Selectmen is unanimously in favor of Article 50.
Seeing no one else wishing to be recognized, again, that's a two-thirds vote requirement. All those in favor of the motion of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries. The two-thirds. Article 50, to see if the town will vote to amend Section 4A of Chapter 3 of the General Bylaws, the Warrant Committee, by deleting the words November 1st in the first line and inserting in their place the words December 1st, by inserting the words a preliminary budget with in the third line before the words a statement, and by inserting at the end of a subsection A the words with a final copy of said budget due to the Warrant Committee by January 31st. So that Section 4A reads as follows. On or before December 1st of each year, each board, committee, or officer of the town shall file with the selectmen, who shall transmit the same to the Warrant Committee, a preliminary budget with a statement in detail of the appropriation or appropriations recommended by such board, committee, or officer for the work under its or his charge for the ensuing year, with a final copy of said budget due to the Warrant Committee by January 31st, and to act on anything related thereto. This is submitted by the Warrant Committee, and it is recommended that the town vote to amend Section 4A of Chapter 3 of the General Bylaws, the Warrant Committee, by deleting the words November 1st in the first line and inserting in their place the words December 1st, by inserting the words a preliminary budget with in the third line before the words quote, a statement, close quote, and by inserting at the end of subsection A the words, with a final copy of said budget due to the Warrant Committee by January 31st. So that subsection 4A reads as follows. On or before December 1st of each year, each board, committee, or officer of the town shall file with the selectmen, who shall transmit the same to the Warrant Committee, a preliminary budget with a statement in detail of the appropriation or appropriations recommended by such board, committee, or officer for the work under its or his charge for the ensuing year, with a final copy of said budget due to the Warrant Committee by January 31st. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Article 51, to see if the town will vote to amend Section 34 of Chapter 6, Police Regulations of the town's general bylaws by inserting the phrase, quote, with the exception of leased premises, close quote, in the third line of said section, so that it reads as follows. Section 34, drinking or possession of alcoholic beverages as defined in Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws, while in or upon any school building or school grounds, library grounds, park, playground, or other municipal building or land, with the exception of leased premises, is prohibited. Whoever violates any provision of this section shall be fined an amount not less than $25, nor more than $100 for each offense, and to act on anything related thereto. This is a citizen's petition submitted by Linda Conley, 70 Laughlin Street, Mark Sullivan, 21 Sheridan Drive, Brian S. Conley, 70 Laughlin Street, Arlene F. Ty, 36 Central Lane, William F. Conley Jr., 70 Laughlin Street, Mary M. Gillino, 35 Christopher Drive, William J. Conley, 70 Laughlin Street, Maureen P. Gillino, 35 Christopher Drive, Charles M. Caputo, 15 California Avenue, Lawrence H. Foley, 20 Meredith Circle, Stephen F. Sullivan, 77 Maryland Road, James M. Rogan, 92 Meredith Circle, Agnes Rogan, 91 Meredith Circle, James D. Rogan, 91 Meredith Circle, Janice C. Wilson, 274 Reedsdale Road. And it is recommended that the town vote to amend Section 34 of Chapter 6 of the General Bylaws, known as the Police Regulations, by inserting a new second sentence, which reads, with respect to the use of Town of Milton property in accordance with the written lease agreement with the Town of Milton, drinking or possession of alcoholic beverages may be permitted on the leased premises upon such terms and subject to such conditions as the Board of Selectmen shall determine, close quote. So that Section 34 of Chapter 6 would read, drinking or possession of alcoholic beverages as defined in Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws, while in or upon any school building or school grounds, library grounds, park, playground, or other municipal building or land is prohibited. With respect to the use of Town of Milton property in accordance with a written lease agreement with the Town of Milton, drinking or possession of alcoholic beverages may be permitted on the leased premises upon such terms and subject to such conditions as the Board of Selectmen shall determine. Whoever violates any provision of this section shall be fined an amount of not less than $25 nor more than $100 for each offense. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Excuse me. Mr. Mahalchek, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Mike Mahalchik, town meeting member for Precinct 7. I think we've got a drinking problem in this country. Anyone who watched the news after the Patriots won and saw what those students at Northeastern did, turning over cars, setting fires, killing people, would have to say they took things a little too far. I've got a daughter. On my way over here, we got a chance to talk, and I said, do you know anybody who drinks in your class? And she said, lots of kids drink. I said, well, what does lots of kids mean? 5? Oh, no. 10? 15? 25 or so, she estimates. She's an 8th grader. I can remember when I was a kid in high school taking 6-packs that older people bought me up into the hills of my little country town where I lived. There was one night in particular, I never got caught, nothing, no harm, no foul, but I was speeding down a winding road in the back of a 1970 Pontiac Firebird while the guy was saying, let's see how well these radials work, because radials were new then. And I'm lucky to be standing here to talk to you. But I also had the experience when I was 16 of spending a year in Holland with the Rotary Club. And I wasn't there for a week when my host father took me to a bar and bought me a beer. And later on, they sent me to the town of Rambouillet in France, where I got to spend a week. And I went to a high school, and they had bottles of red wine on the tables. And the bread was good, too. I think prohibitions on drinking, these strict prohibitions, come from a bygone day, a Puritan era, narrow-minded, fundamentalist era, something you'd expect to hear from an Ayatollah or from Osama. Makes me want to say, Jesus Christ, first miracle recorded was changing water into wine. So how can it be that bad? Now, I'm speaking in addition to being a member from Precinct 7 as a member of the Milton Players. And some of you might notice that it's kind of hard to see what's going on up here because of the sight lines in a flat floor. And when I was in the group, and I said, wouldn't it be great to use that nice new auditorium that they're going to build with stadium seating? What a great facility compared to where we are now. And they said, yeah, but you know, we make a lot of money on the nights when we have our cabaret night, and we sell a couple glasses of wine and some beer. And so I took a survey of my friends in the Milton Players, and the comments came back. Not one of them said it was a bad idea to sell beer and wine in small quantities on public land. They said, for example, yes, or we never had an issue with alcohol and performances. I can tell you no cars were getting turned over after Guys and Dolls finished up on cabaret night on Reedsdale Road. The proposal seems hardly harmless enough, and yes, nobody spoke against it. And I think as a library trustee, although I haven't talked this over with my fellow trustees, but wouldn't it be nice to hit some people up for $5 a glass for a little Chardonnay to help build our library? I mean, I did a little research on this, and it turns out that if the I don't know, did you offer this original bylaw, sir? I'd like to find out who it is, and if I can offer a friendly amendment to the original proposal here by the residents. Is anyone here? I'm really not experienced in this stuff, but here's what I want to do. I want to keep it simple. I think that what you wrote was fine, except I'd like to say right in the sentence where it says,
Mr. Walczak, maybe I can stop. The residents are not all here, and so a friendly amendment is really out of the question, but you have to decide whether you want to make a motion to amend, which you could do.
I made that decision, thank you. I want to make, it's very simple. Just after where it says about all the places you can't drink, like schools and libraries, prohibited, put a comma there and say, except with the written consent of the Board of Selectmen. That would put us in line with the town of West Newbury, the town of Brookline, Princeton, Longmeadow, Lexington, and Acton. That's what their statute on this says. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Walczak, can I see your amendment?
Since it involves permission of the Board of Selectmen, and I think it's already covered. And thank you, Don.
The general laws prohibit striking.
Of course, and I don't want to even. Yeah, I'll speak from the heart. You speak from the law. I don't know the law.
You can have, I remember. Well, when we were building the playground at Weber School in this after, it's let's get some beer back. I thought you were going to have an hot.
Of course, I mean it's so hard to keep it.
And you said it's against the,
Yeah.
it's against the general.
Okay, can the meeting come back to order, please? Let me explain where we are, because it seems that people might be confused. Mr. Mahalchek has made, and Mr. Mahalchek, don't go anywhere, please. Mr. Mahalchek has made a motion, and he wants to change language, and his motion is, if you look at the recommendation, about the fourth line down, it ends with the phrase, building all land is prohibited. He wants to add at the end of that, except with written consent of the Board of Selectmen. Now, first point is we need someone to second that motion. Motion's been made and seconded, and now all of our discussion, if anyone would like to speak, is related to this amended motion. The amendment. The amendment, thank you. Mr. McCarthy, would you like to speak to the amendment? You're recognized.
I would, and thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to ask Mr. Mahalchek to consider language further down the recommendation, which I believe could be construed to be doing precisely what it is that he would like to have written in here. It says, with respect to the use of Town of Milton property in accordance with a written lease agreement with the Town of Milton, drinking or possession of alcoholic beverages may be permitted on the lease premises upon such terms and subject to such conditions as the Board of Selectmen may determine. This article only contemplates granting the Board of Selectmen on a case-by-case basis, and if we understand this correctly, there are only two potential cases, the Granite Links Golf Course and the Milton Yacht Club, the two parcels which are currently public property leased to other entities. It just asks that the Board of Selectmen be allowed to make a judgment upon application of whether or not the consumption and possession of alcoholic beverages in those two limited instances is appropriate and worthwhile.
Actually, no, please. You have to be recognized by the moderator. Thank you, Charlie, although well-intentioned. I've just had consulted with our town attorney, and I'd like to recognize him for an explanation. This is really out of scope, the way it was put into where Mr. Malachek recommended. So I recognize John Flynn.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, as I understand the proposed amendment, the effect would be that the article as proposed keeps the present language of the town bylaw that says that possession or drinking of alcoholic beverages on town property is prohibited. The second sentence then carves out an exception that says if there's a written lease agreement for the use of town property, in essence, the Board of Selectmen will have the permission, the authorization to permit the drinking of alcoholic beverages upon such conditions as they determine. This amendment as proposed would allow the Board of Selectmen to permit the use of alcoholic beverages on any town property, whether or not there's a written lease agreement. In my opinion, that's beyond what is proposed by the first sentence. There is also the legal issue. As I understand Massachusetts law, the possession or drinking of alcoholic beverages on school property is presently prohibited.
That sort of answers that question. But I'd like to speak then. Yeah. No, I want to no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I just want to.
Mr. Malachek, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Moderator. Well, I feel pretty strongly about this, and it looks like I've been outmaneuvered. I think I'm pretty clear about what I'd like to have happen. I don't think it should just be the yacht club and the golf club. I think a lot of people who are friends of the library don't play golf and don't sail boats, and I'd like to broaden it some. If anyone can help me out here to make something that's satisfactory, I'd appreciate it. But at this point, come back next year sounds like I
think that's it. This article pertains to leased premises, leased property, and anything related to that is outside the scope.
Right. My confusion is that the warrant committee's recommendation is the only thing that you can really amend. I can't amend what was proposed by the residents like I intended to.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a motion before the body. The motion is explained. I explained at the beginning when we begin town meeting. We're always considering a main motion. The main motion is the recommendation of the warrant committee, and that's what's actually being voted on. That's correct.
Okay.
But your amendment, just so there's clarity, is being ruled outside the scope because this article pertains to leased premises. Your amendment wanted to allow the Board of Selectmen to do it for anybody.
Okay, everybody, I know there's a great TV show coming on. I'm going to take my lumps, and in the words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back.
You're recognized. Mr. Mason.
Bob Mason, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. I rise to oppose this. You people have enjoyed Quarry Hills. It's a lovely facility. No one will dispute that. However, you didn't have it in your backyard. You didn't listen to trucks 24/7, all night long for years. You didn't have to put up with the dust and etc. that was generated, that ended up in our houses. The Quarry Hills swore they would clean up our houses. Didn't happen. Along with the trucks, there was the backup alarms. Then you had all kinds of ledge that had to be broken up 24/7 again, huge machines with big jackhammers on the end, breaking them up. Quarry Hills assured us they wouldn't do it at night. They did it at night. We have the flare. I'm sure you people don't even know what it is, but it's the capture of the methane gas. Occasionally that goes out. We get the fragrant smell of the methane, which Quarry Hills said would not be released if the flare went out. We get it. Quarry Hills, quite honestly, is not a good neighbor. They built a beautiful golf course, no question about it. It's lovely. But as far as the neighbors are concerned, they have done nothing for us but be a pain in the neck. We had hoped that they would just go away. Beautiful golf course built, everybody enjoy it. And now they want to have alcohol brought in on the Milton side. In case you haven't been up there, there's no trees. When nature calls, the only trees are in our backyards. Okay? So here we go again. Okay? We've just had enough of it. Okay? The end of my street, they had to put in the sewer and the water line for the temporary clubhouse. Not a problem, we understand that. We asked them to do it with minimal excavation. They came in there with a huge shovel dozer. It's now wider than Quarry Lane. We asked them to restore it to a pastoral setting. They threw wood chips down so nothing will grow. They had a huge pile of rocks that they found. They couldn't believe it. They hit ledge on Quarry Lane. Who would have thought? Well, okay. All right, so we listened to them again, breaking up rocks. They made this huge pile. We asked them if they could get rid of it. It's on town land. It's not even on their leased land. Their answer was, spread it out all over the place, so the end of our street looks like the surface of the moon. If you want to see a horrendous sight, go up the end of our street. It looks like hell. It's nothing but piles of rocks all over the place. You go up and down like this. Wood chips covering the place. We have got nothing from Quarry Hills. You're going to get nothing from Quarry Hills. Passing this amendment is not going to put $1 in our bank. So why? If we were getting something out of it, maybe. I can't see passing something that we've had exemptions from forever. You know, we all know they drink playing golf. They have those sleeves down there in their bags. Okay, what I say to that? Okay, but don't give them the right. If you give them this right, we have nothing. We have nothing to fall back on. We've put up with this. My neighbors have put up with this for years, for the good of the town. We just want a little peace now. I ask you to defeat this. There is no need for it. If they want to drink, let them drink. If we give them the permission, we have no control over it. If we say no, we have a control over it. I'm certainly not going to be out there with a camcorder taking people's pictures, drinking. I could care less what they do up there. If they want to have a good time enjoying themselves, suck down a few, fine. But give us the right so that if it gets out of hand, we have something. Thank you.
Dr. Giuliano, you're recognized.
Frank Giuliano, Precinct 3. Mike Mihalchek, I'm sorry I disagree with you so much that I would hope that nothing in this article says that to be drinking on school property or within, I think it's 100 feet of school property. It's very difficult as it is to try to keep youngsters away from liquor. Some of you may have been around when the age was 18 years old, you know, instead of 21. It took us a long time to get that out because a 19-year-old will, you know, or an 18-year-old will buy for a 16-year-old, and maybe a 21-year-old will not buy for a 16-year-old. But it's very difficult to keep this under control. And we want our children to live and come here and enjoy their life. If this coming month, every single day, you will see a death with these young people, and most of the time it's because of alcohol. And because, as Mike indicated, they have very poor judgment at this age. And so I hope there's nothing in this that would indicate that someone could lease a piece of property from the town, like the new field house or like the new whatever. I mean, I don't think we have to have liquor while we're enjoying things. And I really appreciate knowing if this has any indication of, I know the law, what the law says. I hope we're not trying to subvert the law here. Very, very bad policy. Thank you.
Mr. Whiteside, you're recognized.
Alexander Whiteside. Milton Academy, it's a school, does this apply to Milton Academy? Well, it says or other property.
Mr. Flynn, you're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, the answer is no. This article only applies to the town of Milton property, not to property owned by other entities.
Okay, and that's you deduce that for or other municipal building? Is that the catchphrase that's important? Or is it in a position in the bylaw which only deals with municipal buildings?
It says with respect to the use of town of Milton property in accordance with the written lease agreement.
It does say that, but that has to do with town of Milton property. It's a question what the first sentence refers to, whether or not where it says any school, that means Montessori, it means Milton Academy, it means Curry College. As long as we understand that this is a municipal item.
Mr. McGetrick, you're recognized.
Joe McHetrick, Precinct 1. Bob Mason, I think, said it a lot better than I could, but I think that this is a case where before you do something, you need a reason for yourself. And there's really no incentive on the part of the town, I don't think, to make this kind of a concession unilaterally, in addition to the difficulty that there has to be some control at Quarry Hills of the activity. So I think that really what should happen is, if this is going to be done at all, it should be a situation where the selectmen beforehand under a lease can negotiate the question of whether there's even going to be alcohol on the site, and then either negotiate or renegotiate the lease accordingly. Then at least you know what you're getting into up front, and you create the opportunity for changing the rent or the revenue or whatever it might be. But to simply pass this and just hand this right out without any further deliberation or concessions, I don't think is a very good idea. This probably has to be redrafted. I think Mr. Mason has raised some real questions about facilities up there and lack of toilet facilities and so forth. I think we should just vote this down and move on and finish the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Dunphy, you're recognized.
Just for the record, the Milton Yacht Club, I spoke to an officer tonight. They're not applying and have no intention of applying for this, so this is strictly Quarry Hills. Theoretically, it could be the Yacht Club, but it doesn't.
You're recognized.
Brian Kelly, Precinct 7. Could we get a little clarification? If we don't pass this, is there a possibility, I believe that people are still going to drink on the Milton side. They are allowed to sell it on the Quincy side, am I correct? So people are going to have alcoholic beverages in their golf carts. Therefore, if we don't pass it, we're going to have to enforce it. And then we're going to have to expend tax dollars to have police watching the perpetrators. And then, so if we don't do that, and someone gets hurt on a golf cart, and they were drinking, and they happen to turn over on the Milton side, then we may be opening ourselves to more lawsuits because we didn't have agreement with Quarry Hills so that we could be covered under their insurance policy, under their agreement, under the control and the authorization of the town of Milton. So if perhaps the selectman or someone here could give us a little more clarification on the ramifications if we do not pass this. As far as them being a good neighbor, I was up there the last few days and you saw a flyer coming in about the wrecking ball, and I asked them about using the facility up there, and if you haven't been up there, they are building an incredible facility. And I promise you that one of their greatest tenants is going to be the people of the town of Milton. Right now, we go to Lombardo's and places like that. That is going to be a facility that could actually reduce the chances of people getting hurt drinking and driving because they're going to have less distance to drive, okay? But those folks offered us a facility for the wrecking ball, no charge for a big tent they're going to have up there. The drinking's going to go on up there. Don't you think that if we have some control over it, that gives us a little bit of leverage when dealing with some of the problems that could arise in the future? Thank you.
My name is Stan Abrams, and
Mr. Abrams, just before you Mr. Abrams asked for permission to speak before the meeting. The moderator, Mr. Abrams, is representing Quarry Hills.
Yes, we're with the management company that manages the golf facility, and I just wanted to clear up a few things that have been said here. First of all, as far as the restrooms, restrooms will be put up, but everything that we do at Quarry Hills has to get DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, approval, and that's one of the things that we're working on to get approval. It's not automatic. You want to do something, you can't do it automatically. You have to get Department of Environmental Protection approval. We think we have built one of the finest golf courses on the east coast of the United States, and we intend to continue the quality of the construction with the quality of the services. In the business that I'm in, if you cannot get golf outings where at one time you can get like 144 players, just works out mathematically, 18 holes times 4 people, and that if we cannot compete to have outings with all the other golf courses around that have, that do serve beer, and that people, go out and raise a lot of money for charity. Golf courses raise huge, huge amounts of charity. We already have booked some pretty major charitable events. But I can tell you that if we tell all these people that they can not have a beer when they have a round, they will certainly go to somebody else. And there is a very big incentive for Milton to approve this because you get a percentage of income. And if we lose a lot of these outings, which we certainly will, if we can't do this, then you just make less money. And your lease, your selectmen have negotiated, I think, a very tough lease on the developer, and it's a very lucrative lease for Milton, and you definitely will lose very significant dollars if we cannot provide beer. Just so we know, there is no sale of beer on the Milton property. That's not what this is about. It is the consumption. And I can tell you right now, there is no way to police people bringing beer, whether they buy it from us or bring it themselves. You've seen the size of golf bags, pretty huge. We're not going to be in the business of going through metal detectors on who can tee off and what they have in their golf bag. So whether police could detect it on the Milton side once they cross from one fairway to another, it's really just not practical. So I think that you should really take advantage of the added income that would come in to the town. And there are no exits. No one can drive off the property onto Milton streets. The only exit will be Raschuti Drive into Quincy. It'll be very closely monitored by everybody that will be selling any beverages on our premises. And because of the huge liability that there is for anybody like our golf course, people will be instructed very, very strictly. Their jobs will be at stake if they serve any underage and also serve anybody who has had visibly too much to drink. And just for your information, everybody that plays golf up there has to be on a cart. You have to be 16 years old to do it. So, the chances, quite frankly, of any 8th graders or the like getting alcoholic beverages from our place, I think, would be nil. But thank you very much.
Okay, I'm a little confused over here. Mr. Mellon, were you waiting to speak? Oh, and then actually, Mrs. Agostino, were you waiting to speak? No. Mr. Shields, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Shields, town meeting member from Precinct 2. I rise to oppose this article, Mr. Moderator. I was on the Board of Selectmen when Quarry Hills originally came in with their proposal to build a golf course. Milton did benefit quite a bit by the actual development of Quarry Hills to the tune of about $13 million, which was deferred. We didn't have to pay to close and cap our landfill. However, after, when we got into lease negotiations with Quarry Hills, at the same time the city of Quincy was negotiating a lease with them. Quincy hired a law firm, I believe it was Foley, Hoeg, and Elliott, to negotiate their lease. And I think that what both towns get out of the deal going forward are inadequate. I think Quincy gets a lot more. This deal was never going to be a deal where there were private memberships up at Quarry Hills. I was at the warrant committee meeting the night that Mr. McCarthy brought Quarry Hills in with him to talk about this article. I don't think that Milton is getting enough, and I think that if we feel that the golfers should be allowed to drink, if that is a viable thing, which I don't think so, but if enough town meeting members think that that is a good thing, I would recommend that we table this until the selectmen can negotiate a better deal than we have presently going forward with Quarry Hills and bring that back to the town meeting so that we know exactly what we're getting out of it. Right now, it's in the ether. We don't know, and I don't think that we're getting our share for the ongoing profits that Quarry Hills is going to make. Thank you.
Mr. Shea, are you waiting to speak? You're recognized.
David Shea, Precinct 9. I lost a father to alcoholism. Anything that we can do to stop it, we should vote no on this. We don't need to drink. There's other ways to entertain yourself. A life is too precious. Thank you.
Mr. Ciccello, you're recognized.
Anthony Ciccello, Precinct 4. I rise with a proposed amendment which may address some of the concerns that some of the people have raised here. It may not address them all. The language in the recommendation as it exists now, at least with respect to the Quarry Hills project, arguably could provide a right for Quarry Hills to immediately or essentially begin serving alcoholic beverages, and then it would be incumbent upon the Board of Selectmen, arguably, to later establish the terms and conditions that we want. It may be that if we added to this provision where it says drinking or possession of alcoholic beverages may be permitted on the lease premises, if we added the language with the written consent of the Board of Selectmen, and then upon such terms and conditions and subject to such conditions as the Board of Selectmen shall determine, that might address the situation here where we, as I understand, we already have a written lease with the Quarry Hills folks, and it would make absolutely clear that unless and until they came to an agreement with the Board of Selectmen, they would not, in fact, be able to have people with alcoholic beverages on the premises. That might address at least Mr. Mason's concern that that we have no leverage to do this. In fact, if the Board of Selectmen had the authority, then they would have leverage with the Quarry Hills to get this done, I believe. It would also might address Mr. McKettrick's concerns.
Mr. Ciccello, I'm not sure if you are making a motion to amend, but if you are, before you do, if you are, I want you to put it in writing, if you would, please. Actually, Mr. Mahalchek had it too, because I just don't want to make a mistake procedurally here. Mr. Chikello, you're recognized.
I withdraw my proposed motion.
Mrs. Agostino, are you looking to be recognized? Aye. Mrs. Agostino, you're recognized.
Diane Agostino, Precinct 8. I first have two questions for Town Council to answer, if you'd convey them to him. One of them, we do read, it says drinking or possession. However, being happily married for 26 years to a golfaholic, I know that when you have a golf tournament, and the gentleman over here representing Quarry Hills just addressed this, when you have a golf tournament, you do have carts going around selling liquor, especially on 90-plus degree days. So, and we just cut our police department. We do not have police officers that are going to be, we do have a golf cart within the police department, but we do not have police officers that will have the time to be patrolling the 27 acres of Quarry Hills. So the two questions I ask you to obtain the answer to, whether it's Town Council or someone else, is how will we identify, we can't even identify the demarcation line for Milton and Quincy. Will they somehow identify that? How would they enforce it to make sure there is no liquor cart traveling on the property, number one? Number two, I have also heard that in some towns, I think it was Cohasset, when they researched the law as far as selling alcohol on liquor carts, they had to obtain day licenses to do that. So could someone in Town Council possibly address that? Number three, I would like to ask the following question. Has Town Council ever represented any of the partners, has his firm represented any of the partners previously with Quarry Hills, such as Peter O'Connell and such? So those are three questions.
Mr. Flynn, you're recognized.
The answer to the question about demarcation is that if this amendment were passed, the Board of Select would only be permitted to drink or possess alcoholic beverages upon such conditions, upon such terms and subject to such conditions as the Board of Selectmen shall determine. And if that point is not clear, that would be part of the Board of Selectmen's decision-making authority if they chose to authorize drinking or possession, to make sure that it's absolutely clear what the demarcation line is. The second point is this sale of alcoholic beverages on Quarry Hill Golf Course in Milton is not presently permitted, and it would not be permitted if this amendment were to be passed. This would only authorize drinking or possession of alcoholic beverages if the Board of Selectmen chose to authorize it. The answer to the third question is that a lawyer in my office did represent a principal in Quarry Hills on a personal matter, and that matter is still pending, and it's a confidential matter. But yes, one lawyer in my office has represented a principal in the Quarry Hills Associates Inc. entity.
Mr. McCarthy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to get up and offer a couple of clarifications, if I may. First, this is a citizen article, and so I'm not trying to place the Board of Selectmen in a role of advocacy or being against this article, and in fact, we did not vote a position on it. We were interested to see what the tenor and tone of the discussion was going to be. But I do want to emphasize what I think are a couple of facts. The first is that this involves consumption only. No sales of liquor, of any alcoholic beverages, would be allowed within the confines of the town of Milton. Secondly, as far as the demarcation goes, I think we have a problem of geography here. Quincy has licensed Quarry Hills to sell liquor. It is not illegal in the city of Quincy to consume alcoholic beverages on their public land. We have not, and as far as I know, have no expectation of licensing the sale of liquor at this facility. But this article would propose to allow the consumption in the course of the travel of a golf cart as it zigs back and forth to Quincy, Milton, Quincy, Milton, Quincy, Milton. to make that not against the law, so that we, among other things, don't have to enforce it. Lack of enforcement, as one town meeting member pointed out earlier, does in fact breed contempt. And so that condition is going to exist whether or not this article is passed, I would point out. Again, the only action requested, as far as the benefit to the town of Milton, I offer this as an explanation only. Again, the only action that's requested here is that the town meeting authorize the Board of Selectmen to grant this permission under such conditions as the Board of Selectmen shall determine, up to and including the negotiation of terms and conditions which might, in fact, allow us to demand an additional benefit to the town of Milton. And so in that instance, it seems to me that we sort of have a cart and a horse, or if you want to mix the metaphor, a chicken and an egg. To come back to town, to negotiate and then come back to town meeting to present you with something specific is an option. There's no doubt about that. On the other hand, this article this evening, if passed, would allow us the authority and then the opportunity to go forward and, if we so choose, negotiate on whatever terms we felt were appropriate with the applicant. So just factual observation.
Mr. Mullen, you're recognized.
Peter Mullen, Precinct 3. I've listened carefully to the debate that we've had, and I'm finding it very hard to see why we would not adopt this proposed article. As I understand it, it's supported by the Warrant Committee. As I understand what this article does is it would permit the possession or the drinking of alcohol on 2 locations in the town if you're leasing the property, two public places in the town, if you're leasing the property, and in the express terms of your lease, you've negotiated with the selectmen the terms and conditions under which alcoholic beverages can be possessed or consumed. I think it really comes down to a question of how much confidence do you have in the Board of Selectmen? I don't think they're going to negotiate a lease that is not going to be in the best interest of the town with regard to either Quarry Hills or the Yacht Club with regard to alcoholic beverages. It seems to me that people are raising questions about whether or not there could be a financial benefit here to the town in connection with such a lease. I think there is the potential for that. And it seems to me that we ought to adopt this tonight so that the Board of Selectmen will be in a position to negotiate with Quarry Hills and see what they're willing to offer. It seems to me the Board of Selectmen are in a worse position trying to raise this issue with Quarry Hills if they don't even have the authority to enter into such a lease were there terms that were acceptable to the Selectmen. I guess I'd inquire of you, Mr. Moderator, as to what percentage of a vote is required to adopt this article.
This will only require a simple majority.
Well, unless I misunderstand this article, I'd urge a yes vote.
Mr. McGettrick, you're recognized.
I really didn't plan on getting up again, and far be it for me to debate the law with Mr. Peter Mullen. The problem that I have is that this business in here about on such terms and conditions as the selectmen may provide may or may not allow a renegotiation of the lease. I think what the terms and conditions relate to is the terms and conditions under which alcohol can be consumed. So if you want to be able to negotiate the lease, you really have to do that up front. And I think that's really what Mr. Ciccello was trying to do, was to try to put language in that would say there must be language in the lease beforehand that authorizes the consumption, the possession or drinking before you even get into this exception. In other words, the language is very difficult to work with. It's something that can't be done on the town meeting floor. It has to be worked out, and I think we'd be better off if we simply turn this down to create the kind of leverage that the selectmen would need to renegotiate this if that's what we want to do, or at least to come up with language that nails all of this down. It started as a 10 citizens article. We've tried to deal with it on the town meeting floor. The language is very loose. I think it's just better to back off and just try to take another shot at it after we've had a chance to vet the whole thing out. So respectfully, I'd suggest that we reject this and give it back to the selectmen. Thank you.
Mr. Boyd, you're recognized.
Herb Voigt, town meeting member from Precinct 2. Well, I originally rose to support this article, but Joe has just turned my mind back around. And thank you, Joe. I was under the impression that the language in the article did precisely what you want the article to do. And now I'm confused as to whether it does grant the Board of Selectmen the capacity to renegotiate the lease and to, for once and for all, address the issues that the neighbors of Quarry Hills have been arguing discussing for years about how Quarry Hills is not being a good neighbor. And I think we have to get that relationship fixed for our fellow town members. So please, if I could have a clarification on what precisely will you be enabled to do by us allowing this to go forward?
Mr. Flynn, you're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, the recommendation doesn't specify that this would result in an amendment to the lease. As you read, it says, upon such terms and subject to such conditions as the Board of Selectmen shall determine. One of the options available to them is they could say, you will not be able to have liquor possessed or drunk on Milton property unless you agree to renegotiate the lease. That could be done in the form of a written authorization. One way or another, whatever conditions the Board of Selectmen wish to impose upon Quarry Hills, or for that matter, any lessee of town property, in return for the right to have liquor possessed or consumed on those premises, would be to impose conditions upon them. It could be done in the form of an amendment to the lease. It could be done in the form of a side agreement, or it could be done in the form of a permit or certificate or a license that contained those conditions. So that is one option to amend the lease or to renegotiate the lease.
Mrs. Dunphy, you're recognized.
I hate to take on the lawyers, but I'm going to try to make a motion that might help us. It would be an amendment to, in the middle, before the words drinking or possession of alcoholic beverages, to add the words that has been amended after May 6, 2004, so that it would read, with respect to the use of Town of Milton property in accordance with a written lease agreement with the Town of Milton, which has been amended after May 6, 2004. That would mean that no alcoholic beverages could be consumed or possessed on the Milton side of the golf course until a lease has been renegotiated and amended that could address the issues that are of great concern, and rightfully so, of Bob Mason and his neighbors, but could also address the issues related to the use of alcohol. I don't have that in writing. Would you like me to put it in writing? Or is that short enough?
Oh, I was writing, the clerk, do you have it? The language I have is right after the word Town of Milton and before the word drinking, you add which has been amended after May 6, 2004. Is that correct? All right. Mrs. Dunphy has made a motion to amend. Does anyone second that? Okay, now our discussion will be on the motion to amend. Let me explain what's going on for the body. Earlier, when Mr. Mahalchek had an amendment, he asked if it could be taken as a friendly amendment. I noted that we did not have the 10 citizens here. However, afterwards in conference with the council, we realized that, well, if the warrant committee, since they're not here, the warrant committee has made the recommendation. If they wanted to accept it as a friendly amendment, they could have. Of course, Mr. Mahalchek's was ruled out of order, out of scope, so I don't want that. It had no bearing. However, Mrs. Dunphy, your amendment can be perceived and used as a friendly amendment if the warrant committee is willing to accept that. I recognize the chair of the warrant committee, Emily Innes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Warrant Committee is willing to accept the amendment.
That means that it's accepted as a friendly amendment. It is now part of what we're discussing. We do not have to vote that as an amendment. Mrs. Agostino, you're recognized. Yes, that's actually a good point. Mrs. Agostino asked that I read the amendment one more time. And for clarity, we're talking about the recommendation. If you'll all look in your books, there's a quote at the end that starts with the word drinking, and it ends, it's the long quote, with the word offense. About halfway through, let me read a sentence. It says, it's actually about a third of the way through it begins. It says, with respect to use of Town of Milton property in accordance with a written lease agreement with the Town of Milton. All right, at this point, the amendment is added, which has been amended after May 6, 2004. Ms. Agostino, you're recognized.
Thank you. Diane Agostino, Precinct 8, the precinct that houses the property in question, which is namely Quarry Hills, because I believe someone did state that the yacht club does not have an interest in selling liquor. So one of the issues about this amendment, excuse me? Did I hear? Oh, I thought I heard someone say that. I'm sorry, I was interrupted. Could you explain?
I'm sorry. Are you asking me a question?
Well, I was interrupted while I was speaking, so I was wondering what was going on.
Okay, let's not.
With regards to the amendment is to, in some way, to promise the town that there will be an amendment to the lease that will make it financially beneficial. And the issue here has always been presented to the neighbors, as well as to the town, that everything was going to be for the benefit for the town, as much as we could get to the benefit of the town. And as we all know, the town needs every penny, no longer every dollar, every penny we can get. We also, or I have read both the Quincy lease, and I'm sure a lot of other people in this audience have read the Quincy versus the Milton lease. We've gotten a lot of promises, but we're getting the short end of the stick when it comes to what we really obtain. So this town meeting that is looking for extra money has the ability, as Mr. McGettrick stated, to vote this down now to be sure that we're not selling our town short, that we are doing the best we can to get as much money out of any situation as we can. And I will rise to the main article, but I won't discuss that now, but I will remind you that, as Mr. Mason pointed out, these residents in this neighborhood have lived with everything. It's not a matter of not in my backyard, because a lot of the neighbors approved this project to begin with. And they've lived through unendurable conditions, awake all night and everything else that you heard of before. So this amendment really does not bring in an extra money, because we don't know what the benefit would be. So the town meeting would have the opportunity in the future, if we have this article come back.
Ms. Agostino, before you leave, I just want you to understand, because there's obviously, I think there's some confusion. When you keep referring to this amendment, Mrs. Dunphy made a motion. She wanted to see if there was an exception of a friendly amendment. The warrant committee
that's true. It's not
has
an
accepted
amendment.
it. So there's only one motion before the body. It's the main motion.
Right, but the word I was using, amendment, pertained to the amendment of the lease.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Zimmer, you're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, Michael Zimmer, town meeting member from Precinct 3. Just a language. I'd like to make, a small amendment to Ms. Dunphy's language. I'm sitting around some pretty astute lawyers, and they noted that there should be one additional word entered, and I think this is pretty critical, that if you start with her sentence, which is between Milton, comma, and drinking, She has, which has been amended after May 6, 2004, should actually be, which has been entered and amended after May 2000, or entered or amended after May 6, 2004. So we're adding the word entered and or.
And you're proposing that be a friendly amendment, Mr. Zimmer?
I'm proposing that to be a friendly amendment to Ms. Dunphy's friendly amendment. Should we write this down? Oh, Mr. Moderator, that should be entered into or amended. Entered into or amended.
Recognize Emily Innes for the purpose of deciding, voting on whether she's going to accept that as a friendly amendment.
Actually, one of the astute lawyers on the warrant committee had already brought that one up, so we happily accept that particular amendment.
Okay, well, for the body's sake, I'll just read one more time what now that the total added verbiage is. This is the total added verbiage. Again, it's between the word Milton and drinking. So I'll read the sentence. With respect to the use of town of Milton property in accordance with the written lease agreement with the town of Milton, which has been which has been entered into or amended after May 6, 2004. Mr. Davis, you're recognized.
Frank Davis, Town Meeting Precinct 3. I rise in support of this article as amended. Again, it seems to me that what we're doing is we are entrusting the Board of Selectmen to allow drinking to go on these leased premises on a case-by-case basis, as the Chairman of the Selectmen has said. And that's what I'm going to vote for. I know that some neighbors, and I know them intimately, have had a problem with Quarry Hills, and whether they are or not a good neighbor, I don't think that's what this is about. This is about whether we trust the selectmen to use their good judgment in letting that happen. And I think that's what we should be voting on.
Ms. Santa.
Karen Friedman Hanna, Precinct 2. I rise, and I'm possibly the last speaker to rise on this, and I want to make one point in that I feel that we, as town meeting members in future years, maybe need to reassess our priorities, considering a budget cut of several $1 million to the schools took place and there was hardly an argument, as well as cuts to public safety, and yet this we're spending hours on. I think our priorities need to be adjusted.
All right, my sense is the meeting is ready to take this. I'll accept one other speaker. Ms. Agostino, you're recognized.
Diana Agostino, Precinct 8. As I mentioned, the previous times I rose was to get some information, and now I rise for Precinct 8 as a whole. The last speaker felt that this wasn't important. We just heard so many people talk about the problems. We've read so many times in the paper about the problems that drinking can involve. This is about public safety. It's not just about people going to the bathroom in your backyard because facilities may not be there. That is a concern. Quarry Hills just jumped in and said that they'd take care of that. This is a public safety issue to the neighbors. We were also told there would be no access to the Quarry Hills site off of Route 28. I've lived on Route 28 for 26 years. I've watched people who have had accidents have their chest cavity cut open on Route 28. We're talking about public safety. If they're drinking on the Milton side before the Quincy side even is finished, they are exiting on Route 28. Route 28 is not safe. It has not been fully renovated. Whether they're driving a golf cart or a car, drinking and driving don't mix. We have no control over this site. We don't have the police department or the efforts and the energy or the people to have control over this situation. How much are we going to sell our souls and our town for? Are we going to find more and more accidents, whether it's on Route 28 or on the expressway, due to a 27-hole golf course that's allowing public outside drinking? I don't have any issue with them drinking in their other facilities or on the Quincy side. But Milton has always been a fairly dry town, and for the residents of Precinct 8, and basically for any resident who drives Route 28, I would recommend a no vote, and thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The ayes have it. Okay, I see 7 members standing in their place. You can sit. All right, if I could have some help with tellers from Section 1, Robert Chetfield and Richard Williams. If I could have some help with Section 2 in the middle here, Karina Schellingford and Virginia Coughlin. And if I could have some help over here in Section 3, David Shea and Kathleen Lizotte. David M. Shea. Would all those in favor please stand? And with Section 1 tellers, please count the Board of Selectmen's table. With the Section 2 tellers, count this podium up here. And the Section 3 tellers, count the Warrant Committee table. I'm going. Section 2 tellers. All right. Section 3 tellers, are you all set? Section 2 tellers, are you all set? Okay, would everyone take their seat, please? And would all those opposed, no votes, please stand.
All right.
Section 1, tellers, are you set? No, I'm not asking for your count. Are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Section 2, tellers, are you ready? Section 1, tellers, you ready? Okay, everyone please be seated. Section 1.
Section 1 reports yes 47, no 18.
Section 2. Section 3. Motion of the Warrant Committee carries. Let me get the total for you in a minute. The final tally is yes, 121, no, 59. Motion of the Warrant Committee carries. We only have a few articles left. I am going to do my best to get us through these quickly. Article 52, to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 6, Police Regulations of the town's general bylaws by adding a new Section 41 as follows. Section 41, no fouling on public areas. A, duty to dispose. It shall be the duty of each person who owns, possesses, or controls a dog to remove and dispose of any feces left by his or her dog on any sidewalk, street, or other public area in the town. B, duty to possess means of removal. No person who owns, possesses, or controls such dog shall appear with such dog on any sidewalk, street, park, or other public area without the means of removal of any feces left by such dog. C, method of removal and disposal. For the purposes of this bylaw, the means of removal shall be any tool, implement, or other device carried for the purpose of picking up and containing such feces unexposed to said person or the public. Disposal shall be accomplished by transporting such feces to a place suitable and regularly reserved for the disposal of canine feces or as otherwise designated as appropriate by the Board of Health. D, enforcement. Enforcement of this bylaw may be by a town police officer, animal control officer, agent of the town's Board of Health, or any person designated by the Board of Selectmen. E, violation of this section shall be punishable as follows. First offense, warning. Second offense, by a fine of $50. Third, in each subsequent occurrence, $100. F, exemption. This bylaw shall not apply to a dog accompanying any handicapped person who, by reason of his or her handicap, is physically unable to comply with the regulations of this bylaw, or to any individual who utilizes a guide dog and to act on anything related thereto. It is submitted by the Board of Selectmen. And it is recommended that the town vote to amend Chapter 6 Police Regulations of the town's general bylaws by adding a new Section 41 as follows. Section 41, no fouling of public areas. A, duty to dispose. It shall be the duty of each person who owns, possesses, or controls a dog to remove and dispose of any feces left by his or her dog on any sidewalk, street, or other public area in the town. B, duty to possess means of removal. No person who owns, possesses, or controls such dog shall appear with such dog on any sidewalk, street, park, or other public area without the means of removal of any feces left by such dog. C, method of removal and disposal. For the purposes of this bylaw, the means of removal shall be any tool, implement, or other device carried for the purpose of picking up and containing such feces unexposed to said person or the public. Disposal shall be accomplished by transporting such feces to a place suitable and regularly reserved for the disposal of canine feces, or as otherwise designated as appropriate by the Board of Health. D, enforcement. Enforcement of this bylaw may be by a town police officer, animal control officer, agent of the town's Board of Health, or any person designated by the Board of Selectmen. E, violation of this section shall be punishable as follows. First offense, warning. Second offense, by a fine of $50. Third, in each subsequent occurrence, $100. F, exemption. This bylaw shall not apply to a dog accompanying any handicapped person who, by reason of his or her handicap, is physically unable to comply with the requirements of this bylaw, or to any individual who utilizes a guard dog. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Yes. You're recognized.
Laurie McIntosh, Precinct 9. I have a question about the area of the Blue Hills that's within the town. Does this apply to the woods in the Blue Hills?
Yes. I'm informed by town council. Mr. Zimmer, you're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, Michael Zimmer from Precinct 3. It's my experience that all those that pick up NPSs don't necessarily carry them to the appropriate disposal area. If you walk around Turner's Pond, if you go anywhere through town, you see these tied up little baggies of poop. So I don't know exactly how to do this, but I think this ought to be addressed in this article, that there's an offense and an opposed fee if that person that picks up the trash, picks up the feces, doesn't dispose of it properly.
Well, Mr. Zimmerman, I looked at town council.
I guess I'm making a motion to amend the article, and I don't have the exact wording, but it's a concern that should be addressed.
I'm not sure you need to, if you'll hold on a second. I believe the article, in fact, does say that it has to be removed to a proper location, and if my sense is if that doesn't happen, then it is an offense under this article and can be fined as laid out. Is that correct, Mr.? That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no one else, all those in favor of the motion of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion is carried. I'd like to personally thank the members for resisting the opportunity of making some interesting comments. Article 53. To see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate to lease the parking lot at 36 Central Ave for the public and merchant off-street parking, and to act on anything related thereto. This is submitted by the Board of Selectmen. It is recommended that the sum of $13,186 be appropriated for the purpose set forth in this article, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $13,186 be raised from the tax levy. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Did you want to speak about it? Article 54, to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for interest and maturing debt for the 12-month period beginning July 1st, 2004, and to act on anything related thereto. Recognize Emily Innes, Chairman of the Warrant Committee, for a revised recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It is recommended that the town appropriate the amounts shown in the following tabulation under the heading recommended. Interest and maturing debt, recommended for fiscal '05. Interest, $1,880,237. Maturing debt, $810,000, for a grand total of $2,690,237. And that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $515,443 be transferred from the school building bond premium account, the sum of $250,000 be transferred from the school building interest income account, the sum of $445,880 be appropriated from funds certified by the Department of Revenue as free cash, and the balance of $1,478,914 be raised in the tax levy. Mr. Moderator, may I address the article? Thank you. Typically, Article 57, which is the last article, it's the available funds article, has been used as the balancing article. It's where the free cash is appropriated. However, the DOR has been less than pleased with that method. So in order to balance the rest of the budget, we've had to change out how we appropriate the funds that you see here. It's really just a technical change. Nothing much matters, but it makes the Department of Revenue a little bit happier, and we're always happy to please the Department of Revenue. So Article 54, Articles 55, and Article 57 will change because of this.
Does anyone wish to speak to this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. It's unanimous. Article 55, to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the reserve fund for extraordinary unforeseen expenditures for the 12-month period beginning July 1st, 2004, and to apply from the overlay reserve such amount as the town shall determine to meet in whole or in part such appropriation and to act on anything related thereto. I recognize the chair of the Warrant Committee for a revised recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It is recommended that the town vote the sum of $495,368 to be appropriated for the reserve fund for extraordinary and unforeseen expenditures for the 12-month period beginning July 1st, 2004, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $336,528 be transferred from the overlay reserve, and the sum of $128,840 be appropriated from funds certified by the Department of Revenue as free cash. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to address this one as well.
You're recognized.
As you know, on Monday, town meeting voted to increase the Blue Hills regional budget by $14,632. That put our budget out of balance. The Warrant Committee didn't agree with that, and quite frankly, it still doesn't agree with that for several reasons. One is we believe that the amount needed for the Blue Hills Regional was uncertain. It's based on a proposed formula rather than an actual formula, and we believe that further funds will be appropriated to regional transportation by the state. We were planning on funding any difference probably from the reserve fund anyway, so we are willing to take it out of the reserve fund now as part of the appropriation. However, town meetings should know that this does impede our flexibility to respond. For example, if the difference that they need is less than $14,000, say it's $10,000 or even $4,000, the remainder of that money is now locked away, untouchable, until we either take it as an available fund at the next town meeting or until we can allow it to flow through to free cash at the end of the fiscal year. Now, $14,000 isn't much, but there's an overriding principle that the reserve fund is needed for emergencies. It is our first line of defense. We've used it for many things. The legal definition is extraordinary and unforeseen. The traditional uses have been for snow and ice. As you know, it's impossible to predict how much we're going to need. It's also been used for legal funds when we've had more cases than we expected. And finally, it is used principally for overtime in the case of something major, such as, for example, the Hood Fire, which costs the town quite a bit in funds for overtime. You may remember that we got $109,000 from the insurance company that reimbursed us, but that was nowhere near the amount of the true overtime. So it is used for these extraordinary and unforeseen. It's large principally because we have a number of expenses out there that we expect to be quite high given the fact that the budgets are all funded at very low levels this year. We have unemployment, we have potential overtime, and as I have said, the Warrant Committee is happy at this point to release the funds for the Blue Hills Regional given town meeting's vote, but we do want you to understand the larger principle that we do need these funds to respond to emergencies. Thank you.
Not yet.
We just have a slight question on some math and on the numbers, if you give us a minute.
I'd
Ms.
like
Ennis,
to,
you're recognized.
sorry, thank you. I'd like to point out that spreadsheets can add, and so can warrant committee chairs. However, this particular warrant committee chair can't actually type. So the correct number for the amount to be transferred from the overlay reserve is 366,528, not 336,528, and is the penalty of doing these things at 7:30 in the morning.
Mr. Mason, do you wish to be recognized?
Mr. Morash is first.
Mr. Morris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve Morash from Precinct 2. Over the course of the first 2 nights of this town meeting, due to the efforts of my fellow Precinct 2 town meeting member, John Shields, it was pointed out to us during the school department budget, that some departments may not be properly budgeting for anticipated raises due to negotiations with their unions. And for the school department's credit, they've been using proper budgeting management style to actually budget that into their proposed budget that came before town meeting, which we voted on. I would hope that all other departments would do that as they negotiate with their departments. But it does trouble me that some departments are not doing that, as if there's two standards of how we develop budgets in this town as we come to town meeting. I would hope that other departments would be brought up to that same level of expertise that's being done by the school committee as they negotiate their budgets with the warrant committee. So again, I asked for some assurance from the warrant committee that in next year's budget, in fiscal 2006, that when we get budgets presented, they meet the concerns that John Shields raised to us the other day, that when we see budgets here, they are in fact fully loaded for what may be anticipated either for negotiated raises with the unions, and that therefore issues like we're dealing with right now under this article for the overlay can be really put aside for emergencies in the town and not have to supplement supplemental budgets.
Mr. Morris, just for a point of information, that you made remarks, they were heard, but I'm not going to allow the warrant committee to respond. The warrant committee, actually, a new warrant committee begins July 1st, and so it will be, and as it is every year, there are changes in the warrant committee, but I think the message got through. Thank you. Mr. Mason, you're recognized.
Yeah, Robert Mason, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. I'm sure you're probably going to rule me out of order. While I do respect the warrant committee, we are the governing agent of the town. What we decide to vote on is what we decide to vote on. And I take exception to the warrant committee's chairman slight tongue lashing of this committee. We voted it. It's our decision. You are here to make recommendations. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would just like to offer a clarification simply because negotiations and pay raises and such have been sort of bandied about here the last 2 evenings. And I just want to reassure the body that the Board of Selectmen, which is charged with negotiating all of the collective bargaining agreements with townside unions, and I'm sure I can speak for the school committee who is responsible for negotiating all of its collective bargaining agreements with the unions under their aegis, are negotiating, in that magical phrase, in good faith with our unions. We do not, neither the school committee nor the Board of Selectmen is going to stand here and discuss in any way collective bargaining strategy in open session. That is a matter for our negotiators and the representatives of the union to sit down and hammer this out. We will obviously bring you the results of those negotiations upon such time as they are completed, and we'll ask you to consider them then. But in the meantime, bear with us, please.
Ms. Ennis, you're recognized for the purpose to respond to the observation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My remarks were certainly not meant to be a tongue lashing. I apologize if anyone takes offense. They're merely a reminder that it is our duty as the Warrant Committee to recommend to you as a balanced budget. And also it is our duty as a Warrant Committee not only to keep in mind the short-term implications of any of our recommendations, but also the long-term implications as well. Again, I apologize if I cause offense. We have talked all year about how town meeting is the governing body, and we certainly do recognize both our rights and our responsibilities.
All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Article 56, to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the stabilization fund in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, and to act on anything related thereto. It is recommended that the sum of $10,000 be appropriated for the purpose set forth in this article, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $10,000 be appropriated from funds certified by the Department of Revenue as free cash. This article will require a two-thirds vote. Does anyone wish to speak to this article? All those in favor of the motion of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Article 57, to see what sum of money... I'm going to stop. Very quickly, somebody left a pair of glasses in a chair last evening. That was Tuesday evening. Please come up and get it at the end of this meeting if it's yours. Thank you. All those in favor? Excuse me, sum of Article 57. You can lose your place up here. Oh, those glasses. Article 57, to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate from available funds on hand for the purpose of deduction by the assessors from the amount required to be assessed in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 23. I recognize the Chair of the Warrant Committee for a revised recommendation.
Actually, could I ask the indulgence of the Chairman of the Warrant Committee and I'll be allowed to speak first?
Mr. McCarthy, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted, before we adjourned, to make a quick observation. This has, as you can see from the course of the discussion over the 3 evenings of this town meeting, been a very, very, very difficult budget year. We've seen a significant drop in revenue for the 3rd year in a row, and this has brought an aura of crisis to some of these deliberations, and I can only imagine where we're going next year. Certainly, some departments barely got what they needed, and very few got what they wanted. It was in this environment that the Warrant Committee was forced to do their work this year. Despite the difficulty of their job, they stood firm and they delivered under the bylaw their obligation to the town meeting to recommend a balanced budget. Would you join me in recognizing the hard work of the Warrant Committee?
Ms. Innes, you are recognized for a revised recommendation.
As we no longer need this article, it is recommended that the town meeting vote no appropriation.
Does anyone wish to speak to this article? I thought not. All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Seconded. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn? Opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you.